Hi, Peter.
Hi, Spence.
Hi, Peter. Can I ask you a question? When, and where were you born?
I was born in Windsor Hospital, 1941, February the 6th, and at that time the German Air Force were bombing, and we got to the hospital, my mum with me in her, got to the hospital dodging bomb craters in the blackout, and we just made it in time for my arrival.
Quite an arrival then.
It was, yes.
More of a bomb.
Well, yeah, the German Air Force was trying to do away with me, you see.
Well, that's always the way, isn't it? How was your childhood growing up in? Was it in Windsor you grew up?
No, I grew up in Maidenhead in Berkshire, only about 7 miles from Windsor. My childhood was traumatic. It wasn't a proper childhood because there was no love, no care, no food. My mum and dad rowed, so my dad would be violent when he'd had a few drinks. So when he came in on a Friday night, I trembled because he'd had a few beers on his way home with the money for the housekeeping. So that will cause a contention when my mum didn't get the money that she needed from him. So he will be angry, she will be angry, and she'd tell my dad something like, "Peter's been bad today." So my dad would start to get angry. So I'd run. And I'd run upstairs and hide under a bed. Now he in his semi-drunken state didn't have the idea of pulling the bed away to hit me. He was trying to kick me from under the bed, which you can't do. But somehow we managed to survive, but it was only survival. We were the poorest family in the town. So poor that we had to rely on the mayor's poor fund in order to survive.
Were you the youngest?
I was the last of the 5.
So there was 5 of you, and so brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had one brother and 3 sisters.
1 brother and 3 sisters?
Yes, as soon as they got to age where they could leave home, they scarpered.
And how was their upbringing? Pretty much the same?
Very much the same. They were left with trauma.
Yeah. Do you think that being the youngest, you perhaps got a bit less, or do you think it was all doled out equally?
I got a little bit more in the end because I was the last.
Yeah.
In fact, my sister, 2 years older than me, would say, "That bloody Peter, he gets everything and I got nothing."
Wow. Wow, interesting times. So what happened with your work life? How did you sort of grow up and come into...
Right, well, as I grew up, I was full of resentment, anger, and so on. But my first break came at 11 because I passed the 11 plus exam to go to the grammar school. Now, nobody in my family had ever done that, or in the estate where I lived, ever done that. So at 11 years of age, suited out in a cap and a blazer and short trousers and long knee-length socks and black shoes, I made my way my first day to the grammar school. And as I went, I said to myself, from this time on, I'm going to be really good. I'll put away all the resentment I felt with my family, and I'll do good. It was my first break. And for a while, I did well. But then the old resentments came flooding back, and I discovered a law which I didn't know existed. Paul said, when I try to do good, evil is present with me, and I cannot do that which I intended. So I actually retreated, renegade, went back to the old self. But it was then that the Lord touched me. And if he hadn't touched me at that age of 14, 15, I think it would have taken a bigger miracle for me to reach out to the Lord and find him.
So how was it that you came to know Jesus?
I had a friend in my class, and he was a Christian, and he invited me to go to a Bible class. And I can still remember sitting on his bike in the road and shouting at me in the garden, "Do you want to come to a Bible class, Peter?" And I thought, well, I'll try anything once. But as soon as I went, I realised that God was there, and he began to work in me. And then my next break came when I went to hear Billy Graham in Wembley Stadium on a cold, wet, damp Saturday afternoon in Easter. 1955.
Wow.
And that was the beginning, the real beginning of when God was going to touch me.
So you, from then on, you were part of the local church. You went out as you met your wife Celia.
Yes, the years rolled by, and I went to university. And again, none of my family had ever done that. So I was held in great esteem by the rest of the family, particularly my brother George. He always respected me, and I always told him what God had done for me. He acknowledged that God can do something in someone's life. So I went off to university, and I really enjoyed my 4 years there, studying physics and mathematics. And it's there that I got my next break, which was meeting Celia. And that was another milestone.
Well, that's when we'll be meeting Celia in a further interview, if that's okay. So during those sort of college years, those formative years, when you left college, when you left university, so you graduated. What did you graduate to?
Graduated in 1963. Met Celia in 1963. After 2 weeks, I asked her to marry me after meeting her, and then we got married 2 years later. Our first, really, the Lord was working in us, but our first emphasis was to go and serve God in Africa. So we went there for 4 years. 2 of the boys were born there. Then we came back home, and then the 3 girls were added to us. We finished up as a family of 5, although we did have another boy, which little boy died when he was 10 days old.
Yeah. What was your trade? What did you qualify as?
I qualified as a physicist and mathematician, and I've always had a bent for teaching. So I went almost immediately after graduation and teacher training. I went into teaching in high school, physics and mathematics up to A level, and I've done that all my life, of my working life.
Yeah. So what has been your biggest lesson up to date in life, in all of those years?
Yeah, the biggest lesson I've learned is that God can overcome the difficulties that you have if you're prepared to give your life to Him, in which case He will take you at your word, and He will work in you in spite of the problems you have. You will come through with His strength and His enabling.
That's a wonderful, positive message, isn't it? And finally, Peter, if you could give a message to the world, to this world now, again, after all these years that you've been here, and what would that message be?
That Peter's a good interviewee.
Brilliant.
No, my real message would be trust in the Lord with all your heart. That's the first thing. Don't lean to your own understanding. That's the second thing. And in all your ways acknowledge Him. That's the third thing. And He will do the last thing, direct your paths. You will never miss out by trusting in the Lord.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful. Peter, I want to thank you for joining us and participating in our little series, and we'll thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.